G2 is one of the best players in the world in m0NESY, but that time might be coming to an end. With m0NESY already leaving and m0NESY with less than a year left on his G2 contract, G2 face a critical crossroad: build a true contending roster or lose m0NESY. m0NESY has been in contention for Player of the Year for much of 2024, and composed likely the most iconic duo of the year between him and m0NESY. He seems to be staying at G2 after heavy courting from Falcons, who were desperate to keep the star duo intact. The G2 CEO rightfully recognized him as the heart of this G2 project, with the opportunity for him to become their true franchise player with the departure of m0NESY. G2 must rebuild around m0NESY, addressing the flaws of this previous year to show the long-term upside of this roster and convince him to re-sign this coming year. m0NESY had an incredible year this year, with several MVP-caliber tournament performances, often looking like the best player in the world. But G2 as a team has not had the success that you might hope for, given their incredible firepower. Consistency has been their Achilles heel, with Hunter having had a significant drop-off in production and consistency from last year to this year. With m0NESY leaving, G2 must act now to rebuild and retain their core firepower while strengthening their current weaknesses. G2 rightfully looks at m0NESY as the best player in the world, and a potential franchise centerpiece for years to come. At the age of 19, he possesses a completeness to his game that most players never even achieve throughout their entire career, with the general poise and polish that suggests that he has the ability to be truly the best of the best and win championships. G2 should do everything in their power to build a roster around him, not only to secure a dominant future for G2, but to also give m0NESY as much of a reason as possible to re-sign this year. With all this in mind, what type of roster construction would be most conducive to long-term success? With m0NESY gone to Falcons, malbs is the new star rifler, a job he has more than proven capable of doing on m0NESY, but has not had the chance to fully utilize in G2, being forced to play more anchor and support roles on this team given the existing system. But even while playing conceivably out of position, he has been a third-star X-Factor, proving his talent. G2 must find a dependable rotator and lurker to replace Hunter, and a proven anchor who can lock down bomb sites on CT side. With the aggression and opening kill attempts locked down by m0NESY and malbs, the incoming players can be more of specialists or flexible, able to slot into more specific roles to support these stars. If you're G2, the dream replacement for Hunter would almost certainly be m0NESY. He's an expensive blockbuster signing, but actually likely pretty attainable given persistent rumors of dissatisfaction from Vitality, and recent news from KRL that both m0NESY and Vitality have expressed interest in parting ways this year. He would be a perfect fit for this roster, providing expert firepower and experience without having to give up a ton of in-game resources to make it work. His CT roles are also identical to Hunter, however he would likely be a little bit more of a third star in this system to m0NESY and malbs, and G2 would likely have to spend quite a bit of money to get him given his pedigree. m0NESY would have to be happy to take a backseat in many cases to m0NESY and malbs, particularly on the T side, but I think he would be an expert addition to this team. I think if you're G2, your next priority for Hunter would be n0NESY. Less experience at the highest level of competition for sure, but another excellent option in terms of raw firepower and competency within his role, having shown flashes of brilliance both in ENCE and Heroic. Might be hard to convince him to leave Heroic given that they just made the playoffs of the Shanghai Major and the team's starting to show cohesion with the recent addition of Dexter. The opportunity to play with m0NESY and malbs, however, might be too enticing for him to pass up, but Heroic would likely demand a sizable fee for somebody who they see as a player with a lot of remaining potential. If G2 want to go the opposite route and gamble on a younger, less experienced player, I think Xiphon is a perfect pick. Just recently benched by TSM, he would almost certainly be looking for a new project to prove himself on the highest level. This is absolutely high risk, high reward, as he would be largely unproven as any sort of tier 1 talent, but I think this is a potentially shrewd move for G2 if he was given the tools to be more of a support player X-Factor on this roster. Let's move on now and talk about who might be the new anchor for G2. The anchor is always the most underrated piece of the puzzle when it comes to roster construction, with less emphasis on firepower and more on the cerebral aspects of the game, buying time and being clever with making the most out of limited resources. G2 absolutely needs a strong anchor to complement Snax' lack of prowess in CT side anchoring, and to be excellent in the clutch alongside m0NESY. Similar to m0NESY, you'd have to think that Yimpad is the dream anchor signing if you're G2. Undeniably one of the best anchors in the world, he had a breakout year this past year in 2024 with m0NESY, proving himself amongst the world's best. He's still very young at only 18 years old and very raw as a player, with tons of remaining potential even given this incredible previous year. With m0NESY seemingly heading towards breaking up or at the very least changing 1 to 2 pieces after this year, one could imagine him being convinced to leave if G2 rebuilt around him, m0NESY, and malbs. G2 will just be one of the many teams who need a strong anchor though, so there will be a bidding war. His addition would hugely strengthen their CT sides and take pressure off of m0NESY to be the primary clutcher in this team. If G2 can't get Yimpat, I think m0NESY is another great pickup. He's been an excellent anchor with Saw this year, providing strong performances at the biggest events of the year, even making it to the semifinals of Cologne this year. He's consistently been one of their best performing players on that roster, despite playing less than favorable roles on the team. Given that he left Saw 2 months ago and now is testing free agency this offseason, he could be an excellent pickup for G2, filling the gaps and allowing malbs to step into n0NESY's roles effortlessly. Another great anchor that I think could be huge for G2 and I don't see brought up very often would be Crimbo. Crimbo's been a strong role player for Big over the last few years. He's proven to be a consistent LAN performer, even throughout various different Big rosters. He deserves a chance on a team that can be a legit contender, and I think G2 could be that opportunity for him. It might be easy to convince him to leave Big given their lack of consistency under tabseN, but Big may also make it hard for him to leave given his proven ability and young age. This year will likely end up being make or break for G2. They have one of the greatest CS talents in the world in m0NESY, but not for very much longer. They must prove that they are willing to build a championship-level roster or risk losing him to another top team. If I were G2, I would do everything that I could do to get Spinx and Yimpat to build a championship core that would cement G2 as a legit contender and provide excellent support and depth for m0NESY and malbs. But they will not come cheap, and finding the exact balance of roles between Spinx and malbs will likely take some considerate planning to properly execute. What do you think? Will G2 end up taking some risks on some players like Zyphon or m0NESY, or will the undeniable star power attract even the best players in the world? Thank you for taking the time to check out this video. I'm visiting family on the other side of the country for the next 2 weeks, so I don't have all of my typical production stuff, microphone, camera, whatever, but with the end of the major cycle, I wanted to get some content going, and I have a bunch of stuff coming up in terms of top 20 lists and demo reviews and stuff, so keep your eye out for that if that's the type of thing you're into, and thanks for checking this video out.